Brookfield Alderman's house, according to Zillow.
Ooh, way to go!
Put that in your
Zillow
pipe
must
and
be
smoke
true.
it.
We are on the air.
That's okay. That's all right.
It is now 6 p.m. and the January 26th meeting of the CDA will please come to order. Would you take roll call, please, Patrick?
Wayne Clark,
Yes.
Karen Gale,
Here,
Don Niemer, Alderman Weigel,
Here.
Alderman Haas.
Here.
Jerry Matter,
Here.
and Mike Suter.
Here.
All right, we have a quorum.
Thank you. First thing on the
oh, we
agenda,
forgot, do we call Wayne?
approve the minutes of
Yeah.
the December
Yeah.
19th
Oh, okay. I
meeting.
just
Can I have a motion to approve
Move
the
to
meeting?
approve the minutes of the
Second.
December 19th meeting.
Okay, then moved in second. Any further corrections or changes to the meeting? If not, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Minutes stand approved. Item 2, resolution to terminate the memorandum and agreement between Paymax Banks, FSB, and the Community Development Authority of the City of West Dallas. Patrick?
Mr. Chairman, really quick, this, Pyramax Bank was part of TIF number 9. We actually closed TIF number 9 in 2020. Just kind of showing it related to the Laidlaw bus site, which was now Heritage Senior Living. And then it also picked up a small parking lot that was associated with the old Nice Hardware that was in that area. And that parking lot was sold for around $65,000 for Pyramax Bank to build a new branch. The bank branch was built, the TIF closed in 2020, and now the branch is selling that, or the bank is selling that branch building, we believe to, I think, a dentist office. So the TIF is successful. It closed in 15 years. It generates around $240,000 of incremental taxes a year. So we're recommending a termination of something that's on the deed, and that is the development agreement provisions. They've satisfied all those provisions, so we're recommending the termination of that. Item 3 is related to that, but I'll pause and wait for you to go to that item.
Move approval of item number 2 on tonight's agenda.
I'll second.
Been moved approval and second, is there any further discussion?
One question for Patrick.
Mhm.
They would just remodel the existing building?
I believe so. I haven't seen any plans or anything.
Yeah, but
I know there was a developer interested in that parcel too, but it seems like the bank went a different direction.
Any further discussion? If not, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Resolution passes. Item 3, resolution to approve estoppel certificate related to memorandum of the agreement between PMAX Bank, FSB, and the Community Development Authority of the City of West Dallas.
It's essentially almost the same thing. This is just, we're representing to the buyer that we resolved, there's no provisions that would be carried over. So we terminated off the deed, and we're setting a certificate saying we agree that there are no rights of the development agreement that would go to the buyer.
Move approval.
Second.
Been moved approval and second, any further discussion? If not, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Resolution passes. Item 4, resolution to approve reconstruction payment of the existing loan to Whitnall Summit Company LLC for the property located at 6600 West Washington Street and other relative properties. Patrick?
I know this will be a shared presentation by both myself and staff, but as you read headlines and watch what's going on in the market with office space, we know that the market is in an influx of some sort. There's some changes going on. I think you've heard the term work remotely, work from home. If you've gone past the Research Park, downtown office buildings, even our own office buildings like Summit Place, Renaissance Fair, you'll see the parking lots are predominantly empty. Not to say that there's not rent being paid. It's not to say that there's not occupancy. There's a term out there called shadow occupancies where businesses have leased space, but they don't have anybody in it. Where, there's definitely some changes going on in the market. I'd like to talk more about that in closed session. But if you were gonna look at Summit Place, they're essentially paying down a loan that we provided for the project relative to helping get new market tax credits. And you can see the balance of that loan today. They're asking for a period of 2 years of just interest payments going forward. And they'd like to extend the term if possible. We have a new amortization schedule, and we'll get into why this is being requested, but this is essentially the outline of what they're asking the CDA to approve, restructuring of the loan terms.
All right, we'll hold that for closed session. Item 5, discussion
I
regarding
have a
this.
question.
Go ahead, excuse me.
Thank you. Why is shadow occupancy a problem if the bills are being paid?
There's nobody in the space, so,
But the bills are being paid.
right, so, well, it's
Until the
good for
lease
the
expires.
property until the lease expires, or they're trying to sublease the space, which is good. But then in the meantime, you have no employees coming into the area. So the area where we had 3,000 employees, we might be at a quarter of that today. So they're also not buying gas, they're not eating at restaurants, they're not buying supplies. So there's an economic trickle down to the rest of, I hate to use the term, from the 80s, but it goes down to the rest of the neighborhood that they're also not our community's not benefiting from the economic impact of that. So yes, we gain the value. The reduction of lease space in the future could impact values. And we're gonna discuss that in closed session.
Any other questions? If not, we'll continue with item 5. Discussion regarding to the dissolution of tax increment district number 5, 6 Points Farmer Market area of the city of West Dallas. Patrick?
Mr. Chairman, we distributed a memo tonight that will be going to the Common Council. The CDA's role in the discussion of the TIF is to develop a recommendation to Common Council on the dissolution of the TIF. So the first one on the discussion is TIF number 5, which was created in 2001 for the 6 Points area, generally the convergence of National Avenue and Greenfield Avenue around the Farmers Market area. It was a large district, pretty much where we acquired older industrial, older commercial properties, and essentially cleared the land for development. That TIF could be dissolved because we passed a resolution at the Common Council a few years ago that created TIF number 7 as a donor TIF. So each year we inject increment from TIF number 7, which is Summit Place, into TIF number 5 to help pay down debt. And today there's around $6.1 million worth of debt outstanding for TIF number 5. Now you have the option, one option of doing nothing. What I mean by that is we don't move forward with the dissolution. Instead, you let the TIF continue, and the increment that's generated there today, which is around $981,000, pay down the $6.1 million in debt. However, it wouldn't satisfy all that debt within the statutory limit of 27 years. So therefore, there would have to be an injection of some amount that I think Jason identified, like 800,000 or so this year, in order for it to be satisfied within the statutory limit of 28 years. So it was created in 2001, 27 years, and then it would be closed by that limit. So the TIF could do that. The only negative, the other option is to dissolve the TIF, and the city gets the immediate benefit of adding the incremental value, and then also the value of the taxes. I think it's around $175,000 that can be added to the levy. And Jason, jump in at any point if I'm saying any number wrong. So there's an immediate advantage if we use TIF number 7, which has excess increment at this stage, inject that in the TIF number 5, resolve the debt, and close TIF number 5. So that's an option. So you have the option of doing nothing, or you can do that complete donation and resolve TIF number 5 and close it, and we get the added value for this year going forward. So there's a municipal gain and property tax relief. I think there'd be around, I'm drawing a blank, how much on the property tax relief?
I came up with like an average taxpayer, about $12 annually.
It's something, but we're going in the right direction if we close. So our staff recommendation is to dissolve TIF number 5. For TIF number 7, when we go into closed session, our recommendation is not to dissolve it at this time. With the turmoil in the office market, it might be best to keep that economic tool available. And we'll discuss that here in closed session.
But then 7 would donate to 5,
In order to resolve TIF number 5,
to close 5.
close number 5, that donation, because that TIF has around over $6 million in its fund balance today without any debt.
It's already donating annually anyway. It just needs one more donation in order for it to cash flow.
Okay.
Mr. Clark?
Relative to number 5, what do the elected officials feel we should do?
What Patrick said.
I think this is the first time we've been formally presented with the,
Yeah.
Yes.
with the concept. I've had conversations with Patrick about this already at the, we hire professionals to come up with, to do our, to handle the expertise for us. I'd be in favor of the staff recommendation on this.
May I ask what the other 2 elected officials in the audience have to say?
Me, dissolve it,
Yep.
and immediate tax relief.
And the levy limit increase, that helps too.
I don't believe we did that on the Pioneer one though, right? We voted to keep that going another year.
We kept it open another year under statutory ability to create a fund for affordable housing. I do have that in the memo here for consideration, not for this TIF, but TIF number 7. If that was explored in the future, what that would mean. So I put it out there so you could see what that would mean today.
Mr. Chair, you're looking for a motion to dissolve?
There's no motion, it's just a recommendation. Do you agree with that recommendation? And
Yes.
we'll share that communication with council.
Yeah, it's a discussion item and the recommendation is going to council for
Right.
council's action.
It's by statute, the council takes that action, but we have a cooperation agreement
Yep.
under the TIF with the council, so I just want to have us take a position and share that with the council.
Okay.
So we're all in favor of the recommendation?
Aye.
Agree, aye?
It appears that way.
Not that we really need to vote.
Head
but-
nods,
Yeah.
yeah.
Head
Thank you.
nods, okay.
And as I mentioned, TIF number 7, like, I just want to share that it generates around 1.9 million of increment. It's almost $2 million in an increment a year. Could that change? Yes. But in terms of what it's going into the fund balance, the reason, once we resolve TIF number 5, the question could be had, are there more expenses for TIF number 7 to pay? And seeing none by statute, then you would technically work to dissolve that TIF. But
We may have
Mm-hmm.
when we go into
expenses.
discussion, I wanna talk about that a little bit further.
Patrick.
Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Incremental taxes today, is that $1.9 million over the life of the TIF?
No, and that's one
Per
each year. So it went from a base value of 15 million up to around $98 million in value. So it's generating that increment off that new value that was added. So it went up because it was highly occupied. So it gained and was refinanced for around that level a few years ago. And that's where the higher value went for the assessment. But as all things evolve, and that's what I want to talk about in closed session.
All right. All right, then we'll go to item number 6, discussion regarding the dissolution of tax increment district number 7, Summit Place, and authorization to distribute excess increments overlaying tax districts.
I think, Mr. Chairman, we pretty much talked about that, but we do have this slide, and Sean can highlight a few things here about this. And this kind of relates to the discussion that we'll have in closed session.
Well, this just shows some of the, it's really just a crude map to show just some of the, we put together quick, just to show some of the undeveloped acreage within TIF 7. So there's obviously the existing, issues with leasable office space within the Summit Place Center, which has 650,000 square feet of office space within it. And then a lot of parking areas that support it. But there's also several undeveloped parcels as well. There's, this 2.1 acre parcel, you've got a 6.8 next to that. And then additionally, these, combine 5.3, a 1.6, a 0.8. The CDA, I believe, owns the 0.8 and the 1.6.
1.6.
The 5.3 is owned by Whitnall Summit, and they sort of keep it undeveloped because they park a lot of their vehicles on the 7-acre parcel, and they pay a lease to Cobalt, who's the property owner of this, to park over there. And so they, part of the bank financing is wrapped up in that, and so they can't, as they park over here, they're not sure what's going to happen with this site. They have to kind of keep this open for that. So this all plays into, I think, the discussion as we move forward. The 2.9 acres is, I believe, owned by the Motor
Castings.
the northern part of the Motor Castings property. And then the remainder of the Motor Castings property, I believe, is actually outside of the TIF. But there would be an additional, 2.6 as part of that that's being demolished, and then some acreage across the street. So there's just a lot of undeveloped things in this area, and then potential WISDOT, Washington Street extension and things like that happening. Just kind of a lot of things to look at that I think we can talk more about in detail.
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead, Alderman Weigel.
Sean, on that Washington, is it street or avenue?
Street.
Street, Washington Street extension. It has not been confirmed with the winds blowing it that way, right?
Exactly.
Okay,
Yep.
and would there be a timeline? Has there?
So we've heard the earliest would be 2025.
Okay. And honestly, I think that's, so we have an open TID on the south side of it. That's TIF 7, right?
Yep, that's the one we're
That's
talking.
that's the one that's currently open, but we're gonna close it? Oh,
That's
no, that's the other one we're gonna close.
Chit-
And, yeah, but
That's
the,
this one, yeah.
but that Washington Street development is really gonna push the value of that land up in there. So
It-
we're gonna see an even greater increment, well, maybe, obviously the office stuff is gonna change, I get that. But we're gonna, I think there's gonna be real economic development to that, or
So-
improvement.
We hope so.
TIF number 7 was created in 2004, so the statutory limit is 2031, just to kind of point that out. The TIF does incorporate the 6600 building, which is that northwest or east corner of that site. So, any redevelopment, like Sean's mentioning, at this acreage, both sides of it, there could be opportunities. But the DOT was requesting this week to come out and do testing. So they're looking.
They're working on it.
They're
yeah.
working on
They
it.
need to, because they wanna have that
Right,
done
so-
before
When,
done before the stadium interchange?
I don't know the schedules, but they mentioned something about 2025.
They kind of said it would be like the start of the I-94 project. It'd be, you know, first create the extension so that you close it and then people.
Sorry,
That's fine.
it's over there.
No. No, Wayne, you gotta say, whose phone is that?
We'll skip that one.
Who left their phone in my coat?
Skip item 7.
Okay, we're gonna hold item 7, we'll go to item 8. Discussion on 65th and Greenfield Avenue redevelopment area. Patrick?
This will be in closed session,
All right, how about number 9, discussion of 102nd?
closed
Okay.
session.
And number 10, consideration of to report on redevelopment initiatives. Patrick?
I think we have, well, you kind of heard a precursor. There is strong occupancy at Sona Loss with our lease rates. I think this last weekend, they started moving the first people in at Sona, which is exciting. There's 55 units that they want to bring online here this month, but at least into February. And each weekend, they're moving new people in. But they already said that the lease rate, they're up to 98 units out of 110. And this is before it's done, and that other half won't be ready till June, is what our understanding is. So that's really successful in terms of a development. And I think they kind of alluded at like one of the first times that ever happened, to be not complete with the building and almost fully leased. So,
And I think we just got an update on it. It looks like that second round is actually getting pushed up. I think they're gonna try to open it in March, the second 55 units, which is a positive thing, but,
so there's a strong desire to live in West Dallas.
Even in some of their most expensive apartments.
Yes.
Yeah.
The motor casting site, we have this on here, the demolition continues. We're starting to get brokerage inquiries about the site, which is, it's exciting. A few top brokers have reached out, asked for packets, saying they have prospects interested in this area. Within the last 2 weeks, that came up, so some good activity. We don't know for what type of uses yet, that they can't disclose. They just come back and say, you guys would be very happy. So we're excited to find out what that is. So. You can go ahead.
oh, this is just additional information on the Sona Lofts and Makers Row. We had just received an update on sort of showing the area that'll be fenced off and how it may impact the farmer's market. And so we just wanted to note that, you know, Bob Monnet is kind of indicating that they'd be breaking ground on the Makers Row developments during the, you know, as things thaw out this spring, and, you know, would be fencing the area in. There'll be a little bit of public parking for the farmer's market available, you know, at that time. But this, you know, negative trade-off is, you know, part of the sidewalk will be closed along National and then along the market area. There aren't going to be many stalls for the public, you know, within this Sona Lofts area, you know, available during the construction of Makers Row, but it looks like maybe like 10 stalls or so that you could access. You could either access them to the south off Mitchell or to the north off National Avenue. So that's just a brief update on that.
And there's one other item on there, because I know we'll be asked, is 116th and Morgan. The first round of testing was complete. The vapor methane was still present. The DNR then turned around and said, we'd like another round of testing, but in winter. But there was winter since December, but it wasn't cold enough for the DNR. So now there's cold weather expected next week, so they're gonna go out and do the tests at winter so they can say they've tested in all 4 seasons to satisfy DNR requirements. So
And this is the 4th, they've already.
then that would be the 4th and meet all the requirements of the DNR. So I hope to report back further with more details on that. But of course, our goal is this becomes a fully developable site of some nature. But we'll have to work around potential, you know, methane issues.
Excuse me.
Go ahead.
On that site, when you enter off of 116th, then there's a routing that takes you back to the south. What's back there? There's a roadway.
there's essentially a roadway that loops around, and in each area, it kind of, there's drop-off areas for old light poles, just miscellaneous riffraff of some sort.
The back 40 stuff.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's a laydown yard. Old, the trees that we cut down, there's a big pile of like trees that they must grind up and mulch or use in some way. Old culverts, and I think we walked around there last summer. There is a steep grade difference with the abutting properties. There's gullies in that general area between our property and the property next to us. So it's definitely a interesting terrain.
So when the testing is completed, the entire area will have been tested?
Enough to satisfy the DNR for any closure and for development, yes. Now, this is all environmental. We have not done
I understand.
geocompaction or anything like that for development, but it's something that we would have to explore once there's a plan.
Okay. Thank you.
Any further questions regarding any of them items? Are you gonna go into closed session?
Mhm.
Can I have a motion to go into closed session, please?
So moved.
I think you have a statement.
To read the statement.
You gotta read the statement on,
I know, but we gotta,
No,
okay.
read,
All right, we gotta do this statement first, sorry. For agendas 4, 6, and 9, the committee may convene in closed session pertinent to the provisions of section 19.85/1/E of the state statutes of the purpose of delivering and investing in public funds whenever competitive and or bargaining reasons require a closed session. This committee may convene an open session after completion of the closed session to consider the balance of its agenda. Now, can I have a motion, please?
we go in closed
Jerry, I
session.
want to correct you. It's items 4 and 8 through 9.
yeah.
That's it, 4, 8.
You said
8
6.
and 9, okay.
But anyhow,
Yeah,
Move we go into closed session.
Okay.
Second.
Don seconded.
You take roll call, please.
Wayne Clark,
Yes.
Aaron Gale,
Aye.
Don Niemer,
Yes.
Alderman Weigel,
Aye.
Alderman Haas.
Aye.
Jerry Motter,
Aye.
Mike Suter.
Yes.
Now, closed session. Patrick, you have the floor. Summit Company LLC for the property located at 6600 West Greenfield Avenue and other prevalent properties.
Move approval.
And I'll second again.
It's been moved for approval and second. Can you take a roll call vote on it?
Yeah.
Wayne Clark,
Yes.
Karen Gale,
Aye.
Don Niemer,
Aye.
Alderman Weigel.
Aye.
Alderman Haas,
Aye.
Jerry Motter,
Present.
Mike Suter.
Aye.
Note that Jerry was present.
Yeah. Resolution passes.
And then for the adjournment at the end, hit the gavel.
Yeah. Can I have a motion for adjournment, please?
So moved. Second.
All in second, thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.
That helps them at the TV.
Hold on.